Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for your testimony and your service. I represent San Antonio, which is well known as Military City, USA. Among the many institutions in San Antonio that are important to our security and to the community is Brooke Army Medical Center, along with Wilford Hall. But Brooke Army being the place where we have the largest Army Air Force medical center in the country and the source of training for personnel throughout the military. I forwarded your answer to the hearing some concerns that I'm hearing about the future of military medical personnel there. As you know, the Pentagon was required by the National Defense Authorization Act of 2017 to determine the size and composition of our military medical force, and that deadline was not met. I believe you were supposed to have something to us last month that we have not received. Can you tell me when we'll have a formal report and what the impact or what the plan is concerning active duty medical personnel?
Sure. So as you point out at the beginning, that the National Defense Authorization Act directed the department to look at the medical forces. And there's two issues here, because the goal of this one is improving the care of the members of the military and their families, and improving the readiness of those medics who have a military function. So what the Congress looked at and noticed was, we have a warfighting mission and we have medical training that individuals are required to have, and we have a care treatment, but the people performing one are not necessarily learning the skills they need for the warfighting. So what we've done in the study is, at the Congress's direction, is looked at what are those types of procedures, what's the training that is best done by somebody in the military to meet their military requirement, and what could otherwise be done by civilian doctors who, with the higher repetitions, would be able to provide equal or better care. So what the services have put forward is a recommendation about the numbers to be realigned. It would occur gradually. Positions would move as people are traded out and replacements were put in. I don't off the top of my head know whether the report has been submitted yet or not. I will find that for you and get that for the, I'm being told we send it on 22 March, but I will make sure so you get a copy.
Okay, so within the last week, and I would like to get a copy. Do you envision through that report and that study that there'll be a reduction in active duty military medical personnel?
There will be a reduction in the medical personnel, but not a reduction in the total force. The services will be able to realign those into others, but those positions coming down, there'll be potentially doctors.
Will they be replaced by civilian doctors?
In general, yes. We want to make sure we maintain the same level of care.
Changing subjects to the very important matter of readiness that you focused on. As you are well aware, $1 billion was diverted to an imaginary crisis, contrary to the determination of both the House and Senate without their approval. That $1 billion could have been used for readiness, couldn't it?
That $1 billion was appropriated for a military personnel account.
Yes, sir.
And we've had a challenge in recruiting, which meant that we hadn't.
Yeah, with that, you could have sought congressional approval to use that $1 billion for readiness, could you not?
We could. We've been looking at.
And one of the other concerns I have that you're familiar with as well is the recent comments of the Marine Commandant that one of the reasons we have a readiness problem is that he's been forced to cancel or reduce planned military training in at least 5 countries and delay urgent repairs at bases because of the diversion to the border. He also says that the hurricane season, with it being only 3 months away, that we're short a significant amount of money for recovery operations. Again, that $1 billion could have been put aside for use in anticipation of hurricanes, couldn't it?
So we talked to the general. We always appreciate and want to understand the challenges they face. His concern was not actually the cost of deployments on the border. The cost for the Marine Corps for that is quite low. His concern was the hurricane damage and the issue of whether or not Congress would approve the reprogramming.
Well, it is correct that he says that he was forced to cancel planned military training in 5 other countries and repairs on bases. And seeing my time expire, I would also like to know when we will know which specific projects in San Antonio and across the country are targeted to take the money that Congress appropriated for them for things like a aircraft tower in San Antonio to be used for this fake wall crisis.
So on the second question, which is 2808, when we have identified what the requirements are and the sources, we'll be happy to provide that.
Well, when will that be?
Right now, we have received the request from the information from the Department of Homeland Security. The Joint Staff and others are looking at it to determine if those projects meet the legal requirements. I expect we'll hear back from them in April, so it would be after that point.
Sometime in April, you would expect, or we're going
I'd
to
expect to
May?
hear back from the Joint Staff in April. I don't know at what point we'll make a determination on the total amount of funding and therefore what the sources would be required.
By total amount of funding, you don't know how much more money the president will ask for the wall? Is that what you're asking? Is that what you're
So
saying?
he has talked about using up to $3.6 billion in military construction, but that determination is with the Secretary of Defense, and it depends on our review of the requirements and what it meets. So whether we do that amount or some other amount, or we do it in increments, is not something I know the answer to yet.
My time's up, but you say it'll be after April. Can you give us any more precise date? Because
don't
we've
have-
been asking for this for months.
So we've provided the list of the unobligated. That's the pool from which it is drawn from, but we won't know the other until we hear back and meet and get the feedback on the initial list recommendation of uses of the funds.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired.